Deep within the bowels of the 9 hells, a symphony of screams and the stench of brimstone fills the air. A towering creature of terror and intelligence, wreathed in flame and dripping with malice, stands tall, lord-like. He looks down upon a horde of lesser kin, devils in their own right. They cower in awe and reverence, or scramble from his dark, regal shadow. It is a name whispered only in majestic praise, a name that has become synonymous with upholding the ordered, lawful strictures of the 9 hells. Its colossal frame ripples along sculpted lines of striation, a monument to the raw power coursing through its veins. Its body is covered in crimson-red scales that glisten like the flow of molten lava, each scale as hard as tempered steel and as sharp as a razor's edge. Its arms are thick, long, powerful, each ending in a massive clawed hand that could easily crush a human skull as though it were but a piece of fruit. He is the very embodiment of fear and tyranny, a force to be reckoned with by even the mightiest of heroes. He is a battle-hardened overlord of Beator, built to destroy the chaotic hordes of the abyss and enact the will of the sovereign lord of the 9 hells. He is the Pit Fiend, right now on Riches and Liches. A Pit Fiend is an immense creature, even by the hellish standards of devils, commonly standing between 12 and 14 feet tall and weighing in at over 800 lean, muscular pounds. Its Herculean body is covered in thick, scaled, reddish hide, with a face that can only be described as nightmarish and majestic. Pit Fiends often start their infernal existence as a Batazu, who after thousands of years of conflict, treachery, deception, and torment are bathed in an ocean of boiling lava. They emerge cleansed and rinsed from the pit of flame as infernal champions who serve at the pleasure of the archdevil Asmodeus, lord of the 9 hells. As risen Pit Fiend devils, they now sit atop the food chain in Bator, known more informally to you and I as Hell, a merciless and brutal plane. Let's take a look at the Pit Fiend stat block straight out of the 5e Monster Manual that you can find on page 77. Armor class of 19, hit points of 300, and a challenge rating of 20 before any homebrew. They are never to be taken lightly. As a result of their eons of pain and suffering, Pit Fiends are forged from the very essence of hellfire with a cruel determination and an unbreakable will. Remember the Pit Flame, as we'll be revisiting this chasm of molten fire soon enough. Pit Fiends are bred for visceral combat and unrelenting conquest, making them exceptional generals of the infernal armies, ruling over lesser devils with an iron fist and a special level of cruelty. Asmodeus wields his legion of these imposing devils as powerful and ruthless enforcers of his rule of law across the infernal planes. Indeed, these dread guardians are created to be one of the most threatening and deadly encounters in all of Dungeons & Dragons. One common point of confusion often seen in Dungeons & Dragons is mixing up your Pit Fiend with your Balor. While they do look a bit similar, the Balor is actually far larger, almost 5 times as large in fact, weighing in at over 4,000 pounds and a full size bigger, as it's a huge fiend. They both have the same red-scaled bodies and large, leathery, bat-like wings, but at least to me, the Balor looks more beast-like in the face, where the Pit Fiend has a touch more, well, I wouldn't call it humanity, but human-like facial features. The Pit Fiend has a commanding air about him, a presence, no doubt an homage to the Pit Fiend's creator and master, Asmodeus. But if the size and facial features don't give it away, just look for that demonic whip of flame, often the weapon of choice of the Balor. You won't see many Pit Fiends running around with those. So, while appearances may have their similarities, these two fiends could not be more polar opposites in terms of their tendencies, their allegiances, their drives and motivations, and ultimately how they should be played by a dungeon master. You see, a Pit Fiend is a meticulous, lawful evil devil, hell-bent, if you'll excuse the pun, on law and order. Sure, evil law and order, but law and order nonetheless. And the Balor? They're on the side of chaos. Rage-filled demons. Chaos is all they believe in. Now, don't get me wrong, both are go-to champions for their respective infernal and abyssal factions in the eternal blood war. Speaking of the Blood War, along with the Baylor itself, both of those promise to be really great topics for future episodes. The Blood War could really be fun. If you think you'd like to see one or both of them, let me know down below in the comments, and I'll start some prep work. Now, let's look deeper into the nitty-gritty of this Hellfire Juggernaut. The air around this Pit Fiend is thick with the stench of brimstone, the oppressive heat of its presence a constant reminder of its infernal origins. Each breath it takes leaves the taste of ash and sulfur in the air, a bitter reminder of the devastation the Pit Fiend leaves in its wake. Its guttural growl, a sound born from the depths of hell itself, resonates through the air, a chilling promise of suffering and torment for any who dare defy it. This Pit Fiend is a force of unparalleled malevolence, a being whose very existence is a blight upon the world. It is a creature of darkness, a being that thrives on fear, pain, and suffering, and it will stop at nothing to see the world brought to submission beneath its infernal gaze. So what makes the Pit Fiend such a deadly and terrifying encounter for you, dear adventurer? Let's start with its mere aura and how it inspires fear in its enemies. Imagine this infernal champion 14 feet tall with its monstrous, leathery wings spread wide, spanning over 40 feet in width when fully extended. These wings allow the Pit Fiend to take to the skies and pursue its prey with terrifying agility and speed. The beating of its wings creating a thunderous discord that heralds doom for those unfortunate enough to be the target of his fury. Its powerful legs, rippling with muscle, not a trace of fat, I'm guessing he does keto. They end in cloven hooves that strike the ground with a force that trembles the ground beneath you. The Pit Fiend's long, barbed tail whips through the air like a living weapon, and its deadly maw, a bite from the Pit Fiend is laced with a venom so potent that even a single scratch can bring the mightiest of warriors to their knees. But the true terror of this Pit Fiend lies not in its physical prowess alone. No, this beast wields an ancient infernal magic, granted him from the archdevil of the nine hells himself. A dark magic that twists the very fabric of reality to suit its whims. With a mere thought, this mighty overlord can call forth walls of fire to incinerate its foes. This incarnate of evil can bend the will of mortals, forcing them to betray their closest allies and do the Pit Fiend's bidding. And as a commander of the hellish plains themselves, he can summon legions of lesser devils to do his bidding. Oh, wait, you didn't see this on the monster manual details I shared moments ago, did you? Perhaps this is a homebrew of mine. No, this is the standard variant, located on page 68 of the very same monster manual. Let's take a look. A Pit Fiend summons 2 D4 bearded devils, 1 D4 barbed devils, or 1 Irenes with 0 chance of failure. So, how do you hope to survive this hellborn general? If you enjoy and/or find any value in these long-form essays, perhaps consider showing your support over on my Patreon, where I have an ever-growing collection of world-building resources to populate and enhance your adventures and worlds. You can check it all out for free and join with 0 obligation. You don't have to spend a dime unless you want to. Links are below, and a sincere thank you to my supporters that make this video possible. Well, to defeat your enemy, you must first know your enemy. The first thing you need to know is they fly and can blast fireballs, and do so at will, meaning no spell slots. That means unlimited. That is a combination that any experienced Dungeon Master will tell you is generally not ideal for your party. The Pit Fiend with an intelligence of 22 is genius level in their combat tactics, and their spell DC of 21 from a charisma of 24 is off the charts good. And by the way, that's not even their best attribute. Nope, when and if the Pit Fiend decides he's tired of lighting up a group of foes from the skies with his unlimited fireballs, and he feels like getting a little personal and maybe a little bloody, with a strength of 26 and 4 attacks, yeah, they are equally deadly whether they're on the front lines cleaving or blasting from elevation. Add their immunity to poison and fire, that fear aura I mentioned, magic resistance and true sight, and you have a single creature that is going to make you work very hard for the 25,000 experience they award if you're victorious. And I think I mentioned that the Archdevil Asmodeus has legions of these. Yeah, and venturing beyond the fiery gates of hell on the devil's home turf, not a brilliant idea. Okay, so finally, you're asking, get to it, Rich. How does a group of brave adventurers actually stand a chance against such a hellish foe, this powerhouse of the purgatory? Well, that knowledge I shared is power. If you're a player planning to face one or more of these fearsome, powerful, and imposing devils, then I'll do my best to help you. First, Paladins. Your Smite Evil will really come in handy, but with a flying Pit Fiend firebombing and making you do the safety dance, what good is that going to do? Exactly. So first and foremost, review your party's composition and figure out all the ways, any way, to grapple this devil to the ground. You do everything you can to keep him there. Letting him freely fireball you from 100 feet in the air is likely never going to end well. In terms of additional tactics, having a strong front line goes without saying. You're going to need to absorb damage if you're going to be able to keep the Pit Fiend out of the sky. They are fearsome melee combatants, and you'll need sturdy meat shields to hold the line and protect your spellcasters. Range attacks are essential, if at all possible, especially if they can target the Pit Fiend's wings to ground it and limit its ability to attack from the air. Let your DM know you want to do this, and depending upon the DM, this can be an option. For example, I have a homebrew system at my table called Shots. It's designed to be non-optimal, but provides a special circumstance attack that would allow for this type of gameplay mechanic. But failing all of that, we still have one more option. Remember that the Pit Fiend is not your typical run-of-the-mill demon type that seeks carnage and chaos at every turn. They are highly intelligent devils and could potentially be bartered with. You likely are not going to fool them. They're probably smarter than anyone in your party, so make any offers real and substantial. And if your DM is playing this Overlord of Hell properly, they'll listen to real offers. Remember, the Pit Fiend is lawful evil. They want to rule your world, not destroy it. Now that we've covered the bone stock model of the Pit Fiend, let's look at some upgrades. Let's say you need a more challenging Pit Fiend for your max level party of heroes who have been cleaning up the Infernal Plains with nary a challenge. Okay, you could throw multiple, or you could throw a homebrew version, what I'm going to provide you today. Make sure you adjust your CR after adding any of my homebrews to ensure that it's still a deadly but fair fight. First up, let's homebrew a special Pit Fiend. We're going to call him Malthazon the Defiler. In addition to these legendary actions that I'm about to provide, let's also bump his stats up in accordance with his power. Malthazon has special magical bracers and an infernal chestplate that was bestowed upon him by Asmodeus himself as one of his personal guards, taking his AC to 23 and his hit points to 360. All of the Monster Manual abilities still apply, plus he has 2 of any of the following legendary actions and 3 actions, or points as I call them, to spend each round. I have 5 for you to choose from. First up, an Infernal Roar, costing 2 actions, or points. The Pit Fiend lets out a deafening roar that shakes the very ground beneath it. Each creature within a 30-foot radius of the Pit Fiend must make a Charisma saving throw. On a failed save, the creature becomes frightened for 1 minute. Frightened creatures can make a new saving throw at the end of each of their turns, ending the effect on a success. This works really well as a backup for their Fear Aura, to throw a experienced party that's maybe dealt with these before off. Players that are experienced with a Pit Fiend would think once they've saved against the inherent Fear Aura that they're now immune. They are immune to that effect, but not to this special legendary action, the Infernal Roar. Number 2, Unholy Resilience. Cost 3 actions. The Pit Fiend taps into its internal reserves, regaining 3d12 hit points and ending 1 condition or effect that is afflicting it, such as stunned, charmed, grappled, restrained. Number 3, I call it Shadowfire. Cost 1 action. The Pit Fiend conjures and steps through a column of fire, teleporting it to an unoccupied space within 60 feet that it can see. If the Pit Fiend reappears in a space adjacent to a creature, it can then make a single melee weapon attack against that creature as part of this action. They can get some mobility and have 1 attack as part of this legendary action. Number 4, Hellfire Blast. Cost 2 actions. The Pit Fiend summons a devastating wave of hellfire in a 60-foot cone. If you don't know the difference between regular fire, the fireballs and the wall of fire that the Pit Fiend comes with, Hellfire is more devastating. Each creature in the area must make a Dex saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes not only 10d6 fire damage, but also 10d6 necrotic damage because it's Hellfire. They would take half as much damage on a successful save, and the Hellfire would ignite any flammable objects that are in the area that aren't being worn or carried. And finally, at number 5, we have the Chains of Torment. Cost 2 actions. The Pit Fiend can conjure a magical chain up to 60 feet long and can make an attack with it as a +3 weapon. If the attack hits, the target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or suffer 1 level of exhaustion. This exhaustion cannot be removed by any means other than a greater restoration spell or similar wish, etc., or until the Pit Fiend is slain. Again, these are powerful legendary actions because they should be used against powerful high-level parties. So make sure you're adjusting your CR. It's going to go far above 20 when adding any of these homebrews. Sure, it should be a challenging and deadly fight, but it also must be a fair fight. For a truly high-level in-game encounter, however, let's create a Pit Fiend lair for Malthazan the Defiler, and let's place it in the 4th layer of the 9 Hells, and home to the cleansing and rebirth of the Pit Fiend, the Pit of Flame. The Pit of Flame is a place of pain and punishment. At its volcanic center lies a massive lake of boiling filth that jettisons columns of white-hot flame hundreds of feet into the air. At first glance, this would seem harmless to most of the devils. They're immune to fire. But not even devils can endure the agonizing flames of the pit. That's because the flames are not ordinary fire, but hellfire, a kind of unspeakably hot energy drawn from hell itself that caused even those normally immune to extreme heat to writhe and convulse in unimaginable pain and torment. With this setting, the Pit Fiend would be granted 2 of the following actions as lair actions, and remember, that means initiative count 20, separate loses ties. Number 1, Infernal Command. The Pit Fiend exerts its influence over the nearby lesser devils of the pit, commanding them to do its bidding. 1d6 lesser devils immediately take a single action, movement, attack, or ability as if it was their turn. This ability would not affect other Pit Fiends or more powerful devilish creatures. I'd recommend as a dungeon master that you make a list. Bearded devils, barbed devils, something like that. Maybe even have a random chart with 1d4 or 1d6 of these lesser devils. Number 2, Infernal Chains. The Pit Fiend calls upon molten chains to erupt from the ground below. These chains are wreathed in hellfire, and they grasp, immobilize, and burn its enemies. 1d4 enemy targets of the Pit Fiend that are within 120 feet of the lair that the Pit Fiend can see must make a DC 18 Dex saving throw. On a failed save, the creature is restrained by the chains and takes 2d6 fire damage at the start of each of its turns. A restrained creature can use its action to make a DC 18 Strength, Athletics, or Dexterity Acrobatics check, allowing it to escape the chains on a success. The chains disappear when the creature escapes or after 1 minute. Number 3, Hellfire Geyser. The Pit Fiend causes a geyser of hellfire to erupt from the ground in a 10-foot radius at a point it can see within its lair. Creatures in the area must make a DC 18 Dexterity saving throw, taking 3d6 fire damage and 3d6 necrotic damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful one. The geyser remains until the end of the Pit Fiend's next turn, and the area is then considered difficult terrain. Number 4, Infernal Barrier. The Pit Fiend creates a wall of black, crackling energy in a 60-foot line or a 30-foot diameter circle within the lair. The wall is 10 feet high and 1 foot thick, and it lasts until the end of the Pit Fiend's next turn. The wall blocks line of sight, and creatures attempting to pass through the wall must make a DC 18 Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes 4d6 necrotic damage, and its movement is reduced to 0 until the end of its next turn. On a successful save, the creature takes half damage, but can continue its movement. And number 5, Infernal Shroud. The Pit Fiend surrounds itself with an aura of searing heat and choking smoke. The aura extends out 20 feet from the Pit Fiend and lasts until the start of its next lair action. Creatures that start their turn within the aura or enter it for the first time on their turn must make a DC 18 Constitution saving throw, taking 2d6 fire damage and suffering the poison condition until the start of their next turn on a failed save. Creatures that do succeed on the saving throw take half damage and are not poisoned. Feel free to rename this one Infernal Guardian, since that's basically what it is. These legendary and Lair actions would make for quite the epic level encounter, and put this already ultra-powerful foe really over the top. So please use caution at your table to ensure that the fight remains fair, but if your party or dungeon master is looking for a rare and memorable in-game type encounter, you just found it. This will do it. In the scorching furnace that is the Nine Hells, the Pit Fiend stands as the enduring and formidable symbol of infernal power and authority. The terrifying yet majestic Pit Fiend is by almost any measure the physical embodiment of the supreme form of the infernal devil, created in the image of the sovereign and deified ruler of Beator, Asmodeus. For this reason, Pit Fiends are often chosen to man the most critical of roles within the Nine Hells. These top-tier devils can be found overseeing legions of greater and lesser devils as the most prized of generals in the unending blood war, where they lead devastating campaigns against the chaotic Tanar'ri demons. The Pit Fiend answers only to the archdevils, the dukes and duchesses of hell, often serving as their closest advisors or seen ruling vast swaths of a given archdevil's domain across all 9 layers of hell. Powerful, mobile, and intelligent, there is no question the Pit Fiend is the overlord of the rank-and-file devils. Yet as our journey into the depths of hell comes to an end, let me share with you the one secret of the Pit Fiend you should know before ever breaching the gates of hell. Amid all their grandeur and dread lies the paradox that is the Pit Fiend's only true weakness: their unbridled hubris, their utter inability to consider failure. This unchecked confidence often sends the Pit Fiend charging towards the most powerful foes or uncountable numbers with a relentless thirst to prove their indomitable might. The very presence of a Pit Fiend is a sign of the infernal powers at work, a harbinger of the darkness that threatens to consume the mortal realm. They are the embodiment of the Nine Hells' might, agents of destruction and tyranny whose ultimate goal is the subjugation of all creation to infernal law. I hope this episode has provided you with some positive combination of entertainment, knowledge, and the inspiration you need to bring the Pit Fiend to life in your adventures and campaigns. A special thank you to my YouTube channel members and my supporters over on Patreon, who through their generous support make this video possible. If you'd like to support my work, it's a win-win by joining, where I have an ever-growing collection of DM and world-building resources. And you can check it all out over on my Patreon and join for free with no obligation. Links below. And finally, if you think I earned it, please like and subscribe, or let me know what I can do to improve. Thanks for listening, and until next time, remember, the only limitation at your table is your imagination.